everybody.
Hi, everyone.
It's October.
October.
Actually, it's still the end of September, but we are getting ready for October, and this is the October update, and we brought ourselves
to Yellowstone. Yeah, Yellowstone is getting ready for winter. Yeah, we're here at a time when the wildlife is starting to come down to the valleys, and very exciting kind of gathering time for a lot of species, including us.
Including us. Yeah, and so we've seen plenty, and we hope that we'll see more, but we wanted to share this little bit with you. We're here in the Lamar Valley, and Gary was saying, just as we were driving this direction this morning, that he has spent over half his life in this ecosystem.
Yeah, a lot of it on the trail, and I was also thinking that 27 years ago now, since the wolves first ran free again in Yellowstone, really within a few hundred yards of where we're standing now, one of the packs, a sort of U pack. And so, gosh, much has happened.
Yeah.
And that brings us to our theme for this month, which is
Patience.
Patience. Yeah, we want things to happen quickly, and we want them to happen when we want them to happen, and that just isn't how the world always works.
And we want them to, it took so much patience to do that wolf project. So much patience.
Oh, yeah.
And it has taken so much patience in the meantime to make it stick, and to gosh, here we are now, and our state is not particularly, it isn't friendly to wolves.
At least the legislators. Yeah, you're right about it taking a long time to get them here. Aldo Leopold suggested that they be brought back to Yellowstone in the 40s, so it was a 50-year project to just get ready and lay things out so that wolves could come back in 1995-96. And so, yeah, that was a long effort. And sometimes I think when we're trying to deal with conservation and preservation and even climate change, which doesn't seem like we've got much time to lay out a strategy for that and change our ways, it really does take a lot of time. It's just the way it is. And so we will be losing some things because of that. But ultimately, we do still have a chance to keep this world a little better than it might otherwise be if we just keep our heads in the sand about it.
And so the question that we've been asking ourselves is, what do we in the way we talk in full ecology about tending to the social ecologies, the ecologies between us and within us, what do we, and speaking for me and Gary, which is overstepping my bounds a little bit, but have to learn about patience from the natural world. What do we have to learn? Well, there's the Wolf Project as an example, but looking around here right now, we can see where there have been burns, and we can see how much recovery has happened. Some are still fresh, but some are really coming back. And so the forest itself, the earth itself, this larger ecosystem in which we live and of which we are a part, is showing patience all the time. The thing that gets in our way, not surprisingly, is our frontal lobes. And combined with our limbic systems, because they get us all upset and telling stories that are not too comforting. And so patience is a thing that I know I struggle with.
Yeah, it's true. And Mary mentioned the fires. Since the big 1988 fires that made news all over the world, we've been seeing routinely in some of those burned areas oak trees from 20 to 25 feet tall. It depends on where you are and what the soil conditions are like. But it's taken, 30-some years to just get to that fairly young forest. And it'll take about 150 to 200 years for a lot of these forests to come back to where they were. And I think it's so hard to be patient when we only live maybe on average 80 or 90 years. We just want things to happen in a positive direction, maybe sometimes more quickly than they are. Understandable.
Well, also we're deeply socialized into, at least you and I are, into a culture that believes that somehow we can affect circumstances and make things happen quicker. Like, I don't know, but we learn, remember when you were 10 and you really wanted to be 11? You really wanted to be a teenager and you just couldn't make it go any faster? So there's that sort of impatience. But we also walk away from things when we get impatient. We walk away from relationships. We walk away from projects. Could be the thing to do. Could absolutely be the thing to do. And so that's the invitation of patience. And then the natural world, which for the most part isn't dealing with this frontal lobe and limbic system stuff as far as we know, it is just simply, it seems so much wiser. It's just going with what the circumstances are and adapting to the circumstances and supporting one another through the circumstances. So here we are also on this Soda Butte, is that what you said?
Uh-huh.
The Soda Butte River Creek that feeds into
The Lamar River,
which feeds into
the Yellowstone.
And you have all been aware of the enormous flooding here. We can kind of see it here because we're in a valley. The water just spread out and just filled up space that way. But other parts, oh my gosh, the force of that water, it was moving boulders as big as our van, maybe bigger.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's just astonishing. You know, what you were talking about earlier reminded me of this lovely essay recently in the New York Times that referenced Thoreau's writing about crickets. And if you haven't read his work about crickets, you might want to check this out, because he noticed that crickets tend to come into their own as far as the songs they sing late summer through early to mid fall. That's kind of their singing season. And he interpreted it both as this song reminds you that it's fall, you got to get some things done, but at the same time the song gave him the thought that you've got all the time in the world. So yes, there's much to be done, and at the same time to be so present in the current moment that it feels like you've got all the time in the world. That's a balance that I think we try to work on whenever we can. It's not easy, but once you get it, what a beautiful orientation to life.
Yeah, you've got the time you need. We've got the time we need to get as much as food as we don't need to panic.
Yeah.
That's the invitation, I think, from what would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. And the panic energy doesn't really make for good decisions anyway.
No.
So, you may go down the wrong road entirely out of panic and then have to backtrack and lose more time than if you would have just stopped, as we often say, and just get quiet and then figure out through questions you ask what actions are best to take.
So we're aware of some human impatience around repairing from the flood. And the thing about the flood, really in keeping with you've got all the time you need and really not panicking. I can't imagine that the river panicked. I think the river just went, there was not a thought. But what happened was that the river was so filled so quickly that there was no option to consider the humans and the human creations, the human buildings and communities, but rather the river just had to figure out how to get that water through. And that is just a stunning kind of, when it arises, when the crickets need to get the food, go get the food. That's what the squirrels have been doing lately. That's what the grizzly bears in this country are doing right now in hyperphagia. They are eating everything in sight.
Yeah.
And lots of it is little bitty berries and little bitty moths, and somehow they just keep eating and eating and eating.
Yeah, roots and insects. And we spent last night on the Line Creek Plateau area up on the Beartooth Highway at over 10,000 feet. And, that made me think of patience as well, because some of those plants are capable of, if it's a drought, they can wait 20, 30, even 40 years, some of them, in the ground, waiting for the conditions to be just right. And at the point they're just right, then that plant springs into action. And that's really what I think patience in the natural world is about. It's waiting until the conditions are right to allow a plant or an animal to take advantage of a food source or an advantage of a particular habitat. So maybe that's part of our stopping and looking around, is to notice when conditions are right for us to do certain actions.
Yeah, it could be. And wherever you are, you can go outside you can look out your window and you can see this patience. As you mentioned, those plants, I'm thinking about when I was young, 8, 9, living in West Texas, and it was harsh. And it would go a long time without rain, and there would be windstorms, much like we're in the Depression. But then the rain would come, and it was as if frogs had been in the rain, but they weren't. So they were just, how do frogs wait? Just wait until the rain comes, and then they started singing, and they were everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, frogs are a wonderful example of animals just having processes, physiological, biological processes that allow them to wait. When Mary mentioned the grizzlies going around in hyperphagia, that's in preparation for them going into the big sleep. It's not true hibernation, but they're essentially sleeping for the next many months. And they wait, and they wait, and they draw on what they've put into their bodies as far as fats. And then next spring, when the conditions are right, then there they go again. The females, a lot of them with little cubs in tow.
And so we have this opportunity all the time. I mean, life tends to give us this opportunity to practice patience.
Oh gosh, isn't that true?
And much like these beings that we're describing, that you describe it in biological terms, that they are somehow have created these abilities to know when the time is right. We probably have skills like that we don't necessarily recognize because we second guess ourselves with our capacity for self-reflective thought.
Yeah.
That's not an awful thing, but in that capacity for self-reflective thought, there really is a capacity, and Gary, you've mentioned it several times now, to stop, just stop. And then discernment can come more easily from that kind of position. And so it's as if the world around us, even right now as we're speaking with you, even the water, the air is delightfully still.
Mm-hmm.
This is a morning time in the Lamar Valley. Everything is stopped, just quiet. But at the same time, changing with this season, prepared to make more changes. I'd love it if a moose or a grizzly walked up behind us now. We'd be a little frightened, but it would be so great for you to get to see
Boy, would you have a great bit of footage to watch there. Yeah.
But I'd have to be super patient for that to happen. And I am. I feel patient for seeing those two.
I think something else that comes from the stopping, that we seem to be coming back to that over and over, is that's the place where we can perhaps reconnect with the relationship we had for tens of thousands of years with our intuition.
Yes,
I think our intuition gets buried both beneath all the noise that we experience, and then perhaps sometimes for some of us it gets buried under, well, where's the scientific proof of that? There's no proof that I have this. And so just because science hasn't caught up and proved everything, sometimes we're dismissive of skills that we really do have inside, and they've been honed over, again, tens of thousands of years. So this is a good time of year for me to pay attention to intuitions.
So there you have it. Intuition may well be our naturally adaptive antidote to impatience.
Yeah.
And that's for us to investigate for the rest of this month, and we invite you to join us in this investigation of patience and what the natural world teaches us for how to be with our own impatience or with our own desire to experience patience.
So we're going to be deep diving again in November.
Second Tuesday in
Second
November we'll be
Tuesday.
back. Yeah, we're still being patient with wishing and planning to be in transition. So we will keep you all posted with all of that. The other thing is that we now really invite you to take a look at our webpage and the description of the retreats there.
Very exciting. 2 retreats coming in the Centennial Valley, one of our favorite places in the world. And last summer was such a euphoric experience. We hope you'll give it a look and consider joining
And
us.
the summer before.
Yeah, right.
So
It's
we have 2
magic.
planned. One that will be around the solstice time, and one that will be the last week of June. The first one is focused on meditation, inquiry, and food, and our relationship with the natural world through looking through the lens of full ecology. And then the second one is the full ecology of the writer's life.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with really practical, useful, helpful craft sessions in the mornings. But then in the afternoon, we're out really trying to deepen and broaden our perspectives to the world around us. And it's that broadening and deepening of perspective that as a writer or as a creative individual, you draw on to give you your own unique expression in the world. So the crafts are very important, but so is the perspective and the relationships we have to the world around us, and we're going to be things.
Yeah, so we're very excited about those. That's June of 2024. It is not too early to say the spot because we limit enrollment.
Yes,
Also,
very
the JBRL, you can check it out. We've got links to the JBRL Ranch out in the Centennial Valley. And Meg over at JBRL is just at the ready to receive your contact for registration.
So fullecology.com, by the way, if we forgot to mention that,
And
www.
if you have any questions, we love to get your emails at connect@fullecology.com. So that's it for October.
Yeah,
Have a great
beautiful,
October.
Beautiful fall.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll look forward to seeing you again before long.
Yeah. Bye for now.
Bye.